I probably should not use this lens for video. What's going on, guys? This is a Voigtlander 40mm f1.4. It's a fast lens, it's a portable lens, and it's a photo lens. And having said that, if you are going to be planning to shoot video with it, this is what you can expect. Okay, first things first, it's tiny, it's portable, and I got it because it offered me a 40mm focal length and it was fast enough. I was using it in a controlled environment, predominantly like darker settings, and I was shooting interviews with it. And I thought, okay, so it's capable of shooting interviews even though it's a photography lens. But what happens when I take it out into the real world? Like, how is it gonna perform? Because this is actually how you learn what a lens can do. All right, so I took it out and this is what happened. All right, so first thing is I took this lens and I tossed it on my camera. Now, keep in mind this is an M-mount lens and it was originally designed for Leica cameras. So if you want to adapt this to your setup, to your rig, you are gonna have to get an adapter for it. Even though it has an adapter on it already, it's still tiny and portable, and it doesn't add a whole lot of weight to the camera. Because as a lot of you guys know, lenses today can get big and heavy and expensive, and this one is only $399. So I tossed this onto the camera, and I get a tendency to mount a quick release plate to the camera because I don't know if I'm going to be using a monopod every now and then or a tripod, and I just want to be ready. So this is actually where the first challenge arises, and it has to do with pulling focus. Now, it has a focus ring on the back, and because the lens is so small and so portable, that they added like this little knob or this little notch to the focus ring. And when you have the quick release plate mounted onto the camera, and when the focus knob is in its lower position, it sort of gets jammed in there, and pulling focus and like getting in there becomes very difficult. And it's almost impossible to like pull focus, especially if you have like bigger hands. Okay, next thing is the aperture ring. Now, on the aperture ring, you have a couple of handles, and they were placed there to help you find the aperture ring because it is so small. But here's the thing, when you are out shooting, you know, finding it and kind of like fishing for it, it slows you down, and it's tough getting your hands on it sometimes. So even with the handles, adjusting the aperture, you know, becomes a challenge, and it's an inconvenience. So overall, like shooting outside, I found using this lens to be, you know, quite difficult. So another thing about shooting in the daylight when it's sunny out, you are going to notice that this lens stops down only to an f/16, and a lot of the times you are going to need to stop down lower than that, maybe to like an f/22 or even beyond that, to compensate for the amount of light that is entering the sensor, you know, through the lens. This has a 43mm thread size, and if you are going to need to like toss like an ND filter on it, those come at like 72mm or like 80 or something like that. So they're like twice as big as the filter size on this, and in order to adapt, you are going to need to either use a bunch of like step down rings to like compensate for that distance, or create some kind of a snoot. So, you know, that's like another thing to like consider. This lens is fairly sharp, but I was still expecting to see a little bit more like separation of the foreground from the background, because like initially, like that's what I bought it for. So I mean, overall it performed okay, but I was expecting, you know, a little bit more from a Voigtlander lens. At night, it performed a little bit better, and you are going to be able to like take advantage of that f1.4 wide aperture because it's going to allow more light in, and especially like when you are shooting in a dimly lit setting, you are going to be able to get, you know, some kind of footage because it is a fast lens. So the f1.4 is primarily, or is one of the big reasons why I bought this lens, but I was still expecting to see like a little bit more in terms of like the beautiful bokeh and beautiful backgrounds, and I didn't get it. I mean, it did okay, but nothing like spectacular. So this is a fully manual lens, and because of its design, you're not going to be able to toss any kind of like a follow focus system on it. And keep in mind, because of its actual small size, even though you are going to be out and about and you are going to be like tucking your elbows in, but anytime you're going to be like trying to get some kind of like beautiful shots, you know, something artistic, keep in mind that the footage is going to be shaky and you are going to have to like stabilize it in post, and that's going to add time. So that's another thing to consider. So another thing is that this is a single coated lens, and that means that the colors are going to be, you know, pretty desaturated, and the footage is not going to be contrasty, and it's going to give it that classic look. However, like the full name of the lens is a Voigtlander 40mm f1.4 Nocton Classic, so it is in the name. This lens comes in a multi-coated version as well, but I think those are a little bit more expensive, and if there is no need to spend more money, like why would you want to do that? Overall, I was probably expecting this lens to perform a little bit better out in the real world, but it is marketed as a photo lens, and if you are going to be considering using this for video, at least now you kind of like know what to expect. All right, that's it for today, guys. If you guys have any kind of questions about the lens or the footage, drop me down a note in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.